Right now at 6, a ceasefire overseas hits close to home.
The country as a whole has to heal.
The latest on the deal in Gaza as Hamas releases the surviving hostages.
Then lawmakers speak out as we wait for a ruling from the Ninth Circuit Court on sending National Guard troops into Portland.
The fact of the matter is this administration doesn't care about the law or the Constitution.
Plus, ICE agents on a stakeout near a Wilsonville middle school? The message sent to families this evening.
And later, a powerful windstorm sends metal flying. The divine timing, one couple says, saved their lives.
My wife was asking if I was hungry, so I said yeah, or I would have been up on the roof.
First at 6, tears of joy, emotional reunions 2 years in the making as Hamas released the remaining 20 surviving hostages from Gaza as part of a ceasefire deal. Thanks for joining us. I'm David Molko.
And I'm Christine Pitawanich. That deal also meant Israel released about 2,000 Palestinians. President Trump, as well as leaders from Egypt, Turkey, and Qatar, signed the deal at a summit in Egypt. Representatives from 27 other nations, including France and the UK, were also there to witness the deal. The swap and summit mark a turning point in the conflict, with world leaders hoping the agreement paves the way for long-term peace.
This is the day that people across the region and around the world have been working, striving, hoping, and praying for. They have done things over the last month that I think were really unthinkable. Nobody thought this could happen. With the historic agreement we've just signed,
the agreement still faces some major challenges. The question's now, who will govern Gaza and how will the rebuilding begin?
So let's bring in Tim Gordon now with local reaction to the agreement and questions about what comes next. Tim?
David, Christine, there are certainly people here who have family and friends close to or in the conflict in Israel and Gaza. And now that there is a fragile peace in place, local members of the Jewish and Palestinian communities are reacting. After more than 2 years of a crushing conflict.
this took 3,000 years to get to this point. Can you believe it? And it's going to hold up, too.
Finally, a breakthrough ceasefire that includes an exchange of remaining hostages, both dead and alive, for Palestinians held in Israeli prisons. Mark Blattner leads the Jewish Federation of Greater Portland.
So last night was an exuberant night. I'm sitting in bed watching the news late at night. You know, it's 12:30 in the morning when finally the hostages are really back in Israel. And you had this overwhelming sense of relief and joy. And then at the same time, you're still waiting for the remaining 28 dead hostages to eventually come home.
I was up watching. I was watching the release of or the mutual release of hostages and Palestinian prisoners.
Also up late Sunday night was Mazen Malik, a board member of the American Council for Palestine.
Well, we're very hopeful, of course. I mean, we want the genocide to stop.
The ceasefire is a cause for celebration on both sides, but the harsh reality is so much damage has been done. Blattner condemns Hamas for starting the conflict and holding hostages all this time.
At the same time, we certainly have a lot of compassion for the loss and issues that took place in Gaza during this war. But hopefully we're moving beyond that into a time where people can see the world in a better place.
And with many steps still needed to build lasting peace, Malik insists Palestinians must be recognized in a way they haven't been so far.
Without a resolution on the rights of Palestinians and self-determination for the Palestinians, that region will always have this turmoil and difficulties.
I think there's a new path forward. I think there's a lot of hope and exuberance based on what happened. But I'm sure there's a lot of consternation. There's healing that has to take place for the hostages and their families. The country as a whole has to heal.
Yeah, two perspectives there, and clearly there is a lot of healing that needs to happen around all of this. This is just step one, and more steps need to be taken to build a lasting peace in the Middle East. Guys, I'll send it back to you.
Yeah, many more steps, just step one. Tim Gordon tonight. Thanks, Tim.
Now to continuing coverage of the possibility of National Guard deployment in Portland. An appeals court is still deciding whether to allow it.
Let's bring in Kyle Aboshi live outside the ICE building in South Portland. Kyle, it sounds like some of Oregon's congressional delegation is still doubling down.
And David, still no decision from the Ninth Circuit, but that has not changed the atmosphere out here. In fact, you can probably hear there's live music out here this evening, along with a handful of peaceful demonstrators, many of whom are wearing costumes, pushing back on the administration, ICE, and the federal agents protecting this building.
Just blocks from the ICE facility, the focal point of protest, members of Oregon's congressional delegation blasted President Trump and his order to deploy National Guard troops to Portland.
The fact of the matter is this administration doesn't care about the law or the Constitution.
Local leaders argue that the demonstrations, largely peaceful, are protected by the First Amendment. They worry the arrival of the National Guard could escalate tensions.
Yes, I'm concerned about that prospect, and the president could at any time invoke the Insurrection Act, and it is completely unwarranted.
Last week, the president said he saw the Insurrection Act as a way to get around recent court rulings. The Insurrection Act gives the president the power to send military forces to states to deal with widespread public unrest.
Well, I'd do it if it was necessary. So far it hasn't been necessary, but we have an Insurrection Act for a reason. If I had to enact it, I'd do that.
This weekend, protesters, many of them wearing inflatable costumes, which have become the hallmark of these demonstrations, held signs, chanted, and danced outside the ICE building.
We came down here to sing peacefully, to show ICE and the federal government that we are not rioting, we are not being dangerous.
On Sunday, about 1,000 cyclists braved the rain and cool weather in an emergency World Naked bike ride to protest the potential deployment of the National Guard. This as the city awaits a decision from the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals on whether the Trump administration can send federalized troops to Portland.
It's unclear when that ruling from the Ninth Circuit will come, but a decision will likely be made before Friday. That's because there's a second hearing in federal court to consider extending that temporary restraining order, preventing the deployment of the National Guard for another 14 days.
Yeah, we'll keep monitoring when that decision rolls out. Appreciate your reporting, Kyle. Stay with us as we wait for word from the Ninth Circuit and really whatever changes that entails. You can find updates here, online at KGW.com, and anytime on KGW+.
Well, to Wilsonville now, where the school district says it spotted ICE agents parked near a middle school and then asked them to leave.
Our Evan Watson is in the newsroom. Evan, sounds like school officials are saying the agents admitted they were surveilling the area.
That is correct. We received tips today from people concerned after seeing masked agents inside vans parked near the school. The Westland Wilsonville School District confirms that ICE agents were parked on the campus of Inselwood Middle School in Wilsonville. The district says staff members told the agents they were parked on private school property. ICE agents said they were there for surveillance of the general area, according to the district. School staff asked them to leave, and the ICE agents drove away shortly after that. Oregon's sanctuary laws apply to public schools, which are prohibited from providing information or assistance to immigration officials unless required by judicial subpoena. The Oregon Department of Justice says Oregon has a legal obligation to educate all children regardless of their actual or perceived immigration status or their parents' immigration status. A Westland Wilsonville School District spokesperson shared this statement, saying in part, and in January, the Department of Homeland Security rescinded a policy that discouraged ICE agents from operating in sensitive locations, including schools. Tonight, DHS said in a statement that ICE does not raid or target schools, it does not arrest children, and ICE agents would need secondary approval before entering a school. DHS did not say whether ICE agents were present on their school property today.
Evan Watson reporting. Thank you, Evan. Okay, let's talk a little bit of weather now, because it was certainly really eventful out there this weekend.
I mean, you could say that. Celine Stevens is here. Celine, we're talking about mountain snow and a windstorm, and it sounds like we have another advisory on tap tonight.
Yeah, we have a lot going on. Yeah, we do have that frost advisory and warning for certain areas, but right now it looks really good out there. 58 degrees is where we're at. We're dealing with those east winds coming out of the east at 22 miles per hour at the moment. But looking at those watches and warnings, again, we have that frost warning for the upper Hood River Valley, and of course also impacting Washington, but we could be seeing seeing temperatures as low as 28 degrees overnight. That goes into effect at midnight, lasting through early tomorrow morning. Also dealing with that frost advisory, not for Portland, but areas like Tigard, Beaverton, Hillsborough, Vancouver, Longview, even further down south as well, like Eugene and Sweet Home. And so temperatures there getting as low as 33 degrees overnight. So keeping that in mind, lows this morning weren't too bad. 42 here, 37 in Troutdale, lots of 40s and 30s on the map, 39 degrees in Newport. In terms of our highs, getting up to 61 here, 62 in Vancouver, lots of 60s as well, low 60s along the coast. As we get into tomorrow, expect the morning to start cool, a little breezy around noon, mid 60s by around 5 p.m. And you'll see it here, wind speeds getting up to around 30 miles per hour by Tuesday afternoon. The good news is after we get through Tuesday, things start to calm down just a bit, and then we'll be talking about rain again. But we'll break all that down a little bit later in the show.
All right, appreciate it, Celine. Thanks so much. Let's dig a bit deeper on that windstorm now. After powerful gusts hit Longview over the weekend, tearing off a roof and sending debris flying.
Yeah, look at that video. Libby Dowsett gives us a closer look at the damage.
It looks like part of the uncaged cycles and the Felton heating and air collapsed.
It happened that quick. It happened within like 10, maybe 12 seconds. It sounded like a freight train coming through. And
Richie and Leah Holmes, who own Uncaged Cycles in Longview, say they're grateful to be alive.
My wife was asking if I was hungry, so I said yeah, or I would have been up on the roof.
It sounded like thunder, and but we weren't sure, and then the building actually shook.
This is the workout room. It got the most damage.
Richie showed us how massive beams in the roof from Felton's Heating and Air ended up in their apartment right upstairs from their motorcycle shop.
There were beams that were stuck through the rooftop in this other room. Looked like pickup sticks just sticking into it.
From overhead, you can see where the roof is missing next door. Richie said that 30-foot piece of roofing ended up on his roof and their outside deck.
It was laying that way. You can see where it took out the corner up there too, so it was pretty huge. The metal saws cut it all up, and that's what you seen laying down there.
The National Weather Service calling this wind event an upper-level low that sat over the Longview area.
And we had just a little bit of rotation, but mostly a straight-line wind coming out of those storms.
Rebecca Musel says even though this was not a tornado, tornadoes are common this time of year.
Tornadoes and rotating convection is not uncommon in the Pacific Northwest. October, we actually call our waterspout and tornado season.
With winds whipping between 80 to 85 miles per hour, the Holmes family believes God was looking out for them.
You know, pretty horrific situation that we've been through, but we are very blessed.
God only gives us what we can handle, and everybody is healthy and safe, and we're just going to keep chugging along, and we'll get this thing fixed, and we'll be, and everything will be good as new.
Just glad they're okay. Libby Dowsett reporting from Longview there. By the way, it's easy to get in touch if there is severe weather in your neighborhood. You can text tips, photos, and videos to the number on your screen anytime. It's 503-226-5088. A reminder, please do so safely and never put yourself in harm's way for a photo op.